So today we're going to unpack the really complicated relationship between the Dutch Central Bank, that's the DNB, and the European Central Bank. You might think this story starts in Amsterdam, but you'll see pretty quickly that these days it's pretty much all being written in Frankfurt.
All right, let's dive right in with the big question, the one a lot of people in the Netherlands are asking. It really gets to the heart of what it means to be a country inside a monetary union.
Well, look, the short answer? Yeah, in a lot of ways, it is. But, and this is a big but, that's not the whole story. Not even close. To really get what's going on, we have to look at what changed, and maybe even more important, what didn't.
And wow, when you look at it like this, you can really see just how massive that shift in power has been. I mean, before the euro, DNB was totally in charge. They set their own interest rates, they managed the guilder, they were the masters of their own house, right? But today, all those huge core monetary decisions, they're made in Frankfurt. DNB's job is basically to carry out those orders. And it's not just interest rates. Even watching over the big Dutch banks is now handled directly by the ECB.
But this is where it gets really interesting. Here's the twist. This whole idea of the Dutch central bank taking its cues from a bigger, more powerful bank in Germany, well, it's not new at all. The reality of how things worked before the euro is probably not what you think.
So let's go back in time. Before there was a euro, there was the Dutch guilder. And you'd think the bank managing it was completely independent, right? Well, the answer might actually surprise you.
Okay, so here's what happened. Back in 1971, the old global system kind of fell apart, and currencies just started floating all over the place. It was pretty chaotic. But in Europe, one currency started to become the big, stable anchor everyone clung to, the German Deutschmark. And it was so powerful that by 1983, the Netherlands made this huge decision to officially peg the guilder to it. And from that moment on, for all practical purposes, Dutch monetary policy just followed whatever Germany did.
And this quote right here just nails it. It really gets to the heart of the matter. You see, in practice, DNB had already handed over its monetary independence way before the euro was even a thing. The Bundesbank, the German central bank, was pretty much the central bank for the Netherlands too. If Germany raised its interest rates on a Thursday, you can bet the Netherlands would do the exact same thing almost instantly.
So this brings up a really big question, right? If the system was already working like this, with Germany calling the shots, why on earth would you go through all the trouble of creating a brand new currency and a whole new central bank? Well, the answer has almost nothing to do with economics. It's all about politics, and it's one of the biggest political deals of the entire 20th century.
Yeah. See, the story of how the ECB was born isn't something you'd read in an economics textbook. Not at all. It's pure political drama playing out on the world stage at this incredibly pivotal moment in history.
So, picture this. The Berlin Wall comes down. German Chancellor Helmut Kohl has one massive goal: reunify Germany. But the other European countries, especially France, are getting really nervous about this idea of a new, bigger, more powerful Germany. So they strike a deal. They say, okay, we'll support reunification, but there's a price, and that price was non-negotiable. Germany had to give up its biggest economic weapon, the incredibly powerful Deutschmark.
And Germany did it. They paid the price for unity. But they fought like crazy to shape the new institution that would replace their beloved Bundesbank. Their goal was to basically build a clone of the Bundesbank, the ECB. They wanted it to be fiercely independent, with one single all-important job: fight inflation and keep prices stable. They literally tried to bake their entire economic philosophy right into the treaties of Europe.
But, it was never going to be that simple. It wasn't just a copy and paste job. From the second the negotiations started, you had these two totally different ideas about how an economy should be run, and they were at war for the very soul of this new currency, the euro.
Okay, so on one side, you had the German and the Dutch view. They were like, look, if you want to join this club, you have to prove you're disciplined. You have to meet these super strict rules on debt and inflation. For them, the rules were absolute. The number one goal was stability, period. But then on the other side, you had the French and the Southern European countries, and they were saying, come on, if we wait for everyone to be perfect, this thing will never get off the ground. They pushed for a fixed start date, arguing that the rules needed to be flexible, to help everyone grow and create political unity. And in the end, the French view on when to start, well, it won. The euro was launched on January 1st, 1999.
Now, this clash of philosophies, it kind of just simmered under the surface for a few years. But then the European debt crisis hit, and it just exploded. And right at the center of that explosion was this tool called quantitative easing, or QE. Now, to put it really simply, that's just a fancy term for when a central bank creates new money out of thin air
to buy stuff, like government bonds.
Now, remember those German-inspired rules? They were crystal clear about one thing. The ECB is absolutely forbidden from directly financing governments. You just can't print money to pay for a country's spending. But there was a loophole. A really critical loophole. The ECB couldn't buy bonds directly from a government, but it could buy those exact same bonds from investors a little later on, what's called the secondary market.
And that loophole, which was only ever meant for tiny, minor market tweaks, was just blown wide open. It became this massive gateway for a program that pumped trillions of euros into the system. And in effect, it was exactly what the rules were designed to prevent: massive monetary financing of government debt. For the guys who created the Bundesbank model, this was their absolute worst nightmare.
So the fact that this tool was used on such a massive scale, it tells us something really, really important. It actually represents a complete reversal, a total U-turn from the Euro's original German-inspired mission. And this right here is the great reversal. Think about it. The entire Euro project was sold to people in Germany and the Netherlands as a way to export their model of fiscal discipline to the rest of Europe. But what's actually happened? The complete opposite. Slowly but surely, Germany and the Netherlands are being pulled towards that more flexible, growth-first philosophy that they fought so hard to avoid in the first place. And look, this fundamental battle between the two philosophies, discipline versus flexibility, it is far from over. It's a fight that happens every single day inside the ECB's Governing Council. And it leaves us with the one big, defining question for the future of Europe's entire economy, a question that still, to this day, has no clear answer.